Welcome to another episode of Daddy Square. I'm Jan Deckel.
I'm Alex McGann.
Hello, Alex. This is Thanksgiving week.
God, you're such a foreigner. Yes, it's Thanksgiving week. That's true.
And we had our kids' first ever Thanksgiving performance at school.
Yes.
I remind you, they're 3 years old, so they had pretty much 3 songs.
Yes.
Performing.
They were brilliant.
One of which was, "Good morning, Mr. Turkey, how are you?" And I'm like, not so good. It's Thanksgiving. How come you sing about? That's all I could think of. Do people actually teach kids in America to sing to the turkey, "How are you?" when we kill him and eat him?
Yes.
On the table?
In America, the turkeys happily give their lives in November for our pleasure. It's
That's
just what they
awful.
do. American turkeys are incredible.
Good morning, Mr. Turkey. How are you? This is what you sing in Thanksgiving. Don't you have other songs I don't know, "Thank You Next" by Ariana Grande, for example?
I don't know what that is.
Never mind. So this is episode 10 of Daddy Square. We're going to talk about working dads today, and let's just say that if last week's episode wasn't so much in our alley, this one is.
Yeah, this is up our alley, all right.
Oh.
Yeah.
Our alley means something else?
No, but you say up our alley, even though that sounds a little bit...
it doesn't mean bottoming, does it?
It could, but it's all right to say.
We're going to talk with Mike Stommel. He's a founder and manager of Lucky Break PR firm. Not only does he work, but he also owns his own company with his husband, and they never fight, which we found... I don't know, not of this earth.
They also never lie.
Of course, we're going to talk about that, especially when you have kids. I mean, how can you not fight?
That's what children are for.
Exactly. You know, Alex, while preparing this episode this week, I had a very interesting experience. As you know, I don't have an office because I design websites, and usually I do it from Starbucks near.
You are virtual.
Yes, I'm everywhere and anywhere. Anyways, there's a specific Starbucks that I go to every day, basically. You know, this is a Starbucks where usually people come to work. Most of the people are working on a script, right?
Right.
After all, this is Los Angeles. I go in, as I do every day, and before I go in, somebody says to me, "Listen, we're filming for TV here, so I just want you to sign a consent, just so you know that you might be caught on camera." And I'm like, "Sure, why not?" Every day people film there. It was nothing new. I didn't even ask what it is. I didn't care. I grabbed my coffee and breakfast and sat down. And suddenly, James Corden shows up and asks me, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm working on the podcast, and it's podcast for gay dads." And we started talking about it. And turns out that they're filming for the Late Late Show with James Corden, and he was looking for somebody who's writing a script because he wanted to turn it into a film and direct it. So they shoot this whole segment. I don't know if I made the cut or not, but maybe soon we can say Daddy Square as seen on the James Corden show.
And if not this time, soon. It's going to happen soon. I prefer Colbert, but whatever. I'll take what I can.
We're going to be famous. Today we're going to talk about working dads, and this is something that Alex and I...
We have a little bit of experience with this.
Yes, both of us are working.
Yeah. Look, I think that there are so many ways in which our family is so special. And let me tell you all why. I think that we're both working, but one of us, I have a much more kind of standard full-time job, where you go to an office, etc. And Jan has a job where, as he was describing before, he doesn't have a set office space, and his hours are largely controlled by him. And so in a lot of ways, it's a bit of an experiment where you get to say, okay, the children are the same, the house is the same, but the work is different. And you can see the effect that happens when you have different types of work. So Of course, there's the stress that exists because you've got a job and you say, well, okay, so there's this really important thing I want to get done, but there's the time I have to spend with the children. I think that that's standard. Everybody has that problem. It's not a problem for which there's any kind of easy solution. But I think that what's been really interesting in our relationship and challenging and occasionally, horrible, has been that, okay, so I can take time off of work and drive back to take the kids for their shots at the pediatrician's office. And I can, and I have. But there are other times where I've said to myself or even to you, Jan, I've said, you're nearby and you have the flexibility of hours. And so that has sort of seemed so natural. But the problem is that can so easily breed resentment because it can start to mean, okay, well, whoever has the flexibility will always do all of the stuff for the kids. And I think you and I have tried very hard to avoid that becoming the de facto kind of standard way that it works. But these are really big challenges. And and on the flip side, another thing. So you'd think that the person who has the full-time job in a company has a harder time with the flexibility. But there's a flip side way of looking at it too, which is that the person who is kind of freelance oriented or contract oriented like you need to make the hours. You need to find the hours to bill to make the money that you make. Whereas I, as a salary employee, can always say, like, you know what, look, I'm going to take 3 hours off in the middle of the day and go and do something, and I'll just make up for it at some other hour or other time of the day or the week. So, like, different types of work provide flexibility in different kind of ways.
Yeah, and I have to say that maybe for some couples, it was like pretty obvious that the one who's more flexible physically will be the one who's going to take care more of the kids. But for us, I don't think it was this way, mainly because I insisted on continuing growing because I started a business when the kids came along.
Yep.
So growing the kids and growing the business at the same time was pretty hard for me. And my rule to myself is that I'm not going to neglect the job side.
Yeah.
So I think it was, and it still is, pretty hard.
Look, I think we try in this podcast to be pretty open about where we've not only had hard times as parents, but we've had hard times in our relationship as parents. And there can be absolutely no doubt that as stereotypical as it might feel, this has been a source of real difficulty in our relationship. We've both tried very hard, I think, to strike a careful balance so that neither one of us feels as if, one is taking advantage of the other. But I anyway, have failed any number of times where I think you have felt like, well, Alex goes off to his job in the movie studio, and he goes and he sits in meetings, and in the meantime, I'm dragging my, children to Dr. Slaninsky's office, on a Wednesday morning when I want to be working and building my career. And I have to say, like, it is a stereotype of every married couple, straight, more so even than gay. And yet it seems somehow unavoidable unless one of the two decides, no, I'm a stay-at-home dad, and that's what I'm going to do. And I believe, and I think that we found this in our previous podcast episode to be true, I believe that even then there are stresses that exist in terms of the balance. So this is, an incredibly challenging problem, and I think that as much preparation as parents can do or prospective parents can do with each other ahead of time, how are we going to balance this out, what are the rules going to be, is really, really critical to do. Because even though you act as if, it won't be so hard, we'll figure it out as we go along, no, I don't think you should figure it out.
I think also that it's changing.
How so?
I mean, during the time that the kids grow up, there's different needs.
Oh.
So the responsibility is changing, and the way that you need to take time off work is going to be changing.
Right, that's
so
true.
this is something you have to visit every now and then, just to make sure that it's something that, you know, that still you feel good about it, you feel good about your job. I think that for us, Alex and I are in constant trying to figure out what's best, because the change is so fast, basically, that we're almost always in some form of thinking of, okay, how can we progress?
Thinking and a little bit of negotiating, too.
Well, how can we move forward?
Yeah. And most of that is even just about the planned stuff. Oh, you have to take the kid to the doctor's office for this, or, oh, you know, school is canceled on that day 2 weeks from now, etc. And then comes the day that the kid is sick. You wake up in the morning, you have a full day of work scheduled. Both of us have a full day of work scheduled, and one of the kids is sick. And you're like, oh, coughing. My day is shot to hell. And, you know, that is, and really, I have felt like my heart drop when I have seen that, because I've said, how am I going to do this? What am I going to, I'm going to cancel everything? And then, you know, what if it's something that's a really big deal? And it's sort of like obvious that if it's really about the health of my kid, of course, that's what I'm going to do. But, you know, there's a lot of balancing about, well, am I going to do it? Is Jan going to do it? And we sort of stare at each other.
I think the element of surprise here, of the, you know, if they have fever or something, the element of surprise that, oh my God, my day's just ruined.
Yeah.
That's kind of, you know.
Tough stuff.
Okay. This week we received some messages, not questions, but actually comments about some stuff that we said on our show. And I just want to say, first of all, continue that comment.
Yeah,
please give us your opinions. We love reading that, and it also affects the show. We also received some nasty comments, but you know, from homophobe people.
Oh, really?
Yes.
You don't share those with me. I like
because
those.
I'd rather ignore it. I don't know how to deal with that. But I just want to say that the subjects that you're commenting the most, for good and for worse, are the subject that we want to continue talking about, because apparently this is an issue.
Such as?
For example, the technology. So
whether kids should or should not use phones and iPads and things like that. So they're commenting a lot about that kind of thing.
About that, and about, you know, our share of it. The fact that we do it too, we talked about that as well. You know, we're probably going to do a specific episode about technology.
Makes sense.
Hello at daddysqr.com or at Yanir Dekel on Twitter and Instagram.
It's very quiet right now.
Alex, do you have something to say about working dads? Because there's one, okay, we'll talk about it at the end, but there's one issue that comes up a lot in this interview, which is balance.
Yeah.
Balance between the work and the kids, and it's not easy. I mean, we are struggling with it after 3 years.
Yeah.
There are people that it takes them, you know, 5 minutes to make the balance, but I assume that maybe because we have twins, it has some sort of
I doubt it. I think everybody suffers with this. But why don't we wait to hear what Mike has to say first, and then let's talk some more.
Okay, so here's the interview with Mike, founder and manager of Lucky Break PR. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning.
You are a dad. How many kids?
I have 2 kids. I have a girl and a boy. My daughter's 10 and my son is 7.
And you're also a business owner.
I am.
Ooh, and what do you do?
So I own a PR and digital marketing company. I started about 2010. So I've had it for about 8 years. I came from an agency background, and right around the time that my kids were really young, I wanted the flexibility of owning my own business. And 8 years later.
Wow.
So what kind of clients do you have?
We do a lot of stuff in the hospitality space. So travel, hotels, restaurants, nightclubs, restaurant groups, but we also do technology, nonprofit. We do a lot of stuff. So, I mean, our clients range from, Jimmy Buffett's Margaritaville. And
Seriously?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I'd be happy if I've never heard another Jimmy Buffett song, though. So we have everything from Jimmy Buffett's to, we've done communications for LA Pride. So talk about kind of a diverse client roster.
And you also worked with your husband.
Correct, yeah. Yeah, so he has been a business owner since he was in his early 20s, in restaurants, restaurant groups. About 2 years ago, he came to me and we were talking about it, and we love working together. We love spending time together, and we're one of those couples that we don't really argue. We're kind of, I think, a bit of an oddity. But we just get along really well, and
it's just like us.
We work well together. So I was traveling a lot for work, and I think it all kind of aligned for him to come on board. So he does a lot of the operational side for the company, business development, and it's been fantastic.
I'm having a really hard time letting go of what you said earlier in the sentence. So you guys,
couples therapist, ours. Please listen carefully.
Yeah, really. But seriously. So how long had you guys been together as a couple before you started working together?
Well, we started working together about 2 years ago. We've been together for 16 years.
Working in a PR, it's like around the clock. I was a publicist back in Israel, so I know what it is. It's like people calling you in like midnight with stuff.
And beyond, yeah.
How is it working out with having kids?
So I think when I started my own company, I did it kind of unintentionally. I was with an agency. It was 2008, 2009, the economy took a downturn and they lost a bunch of their business. And, I was looking for work with other agencies, large agencies. And, I had a couple of great leads. I was going to do my own thing. And the kids were young. I actually had one kid at the time, my daughter. And we were looking to have a second kid. And it all kind of just aligned. I think for us, I had a couple of clients approach me and they asked me if I'd go in on my own business and start my own company and work with them. They really enjoyed working with me. So I figured with the flexibility of the schedules and the kids, I could actually work from home. I could make it work. So I kind of started the company as a one-person show.
When you started, did you work from the home or did you work in an office?
So we had an apartment that when we had our first child, we actually got an apartment, a two-bedroom apartment for my in-laws. So they could actually come over. They retired in Las Vegas, and we got this in Los Angeles so they could be closer to the grandkids and give us a hand because we were both working. So we had an extra bedroom in that apartment, and that's what I used for my first office.
So it was actually separated from where the kids were.
Yeah, just not my in-laws.
Well, yeah, because I really wonder about the ability that you have to focus, not only because of the distraction of the kids, but at least in the times in my life when I've worked in my house, the distraction of absolutely everything else, including the pillow. The pillow is there calling to you.
Actually, for me, I think it was the opposite, where I was able to focus, but I found myself working longer hours, working at home, because there was no separation of coming home from the office and then following a routine. So I found myself sitting in the office at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and I didn't need to be.
And now that your husband is working with you, do you ever have any
time apart?
Difference between the work and home?
Oh,
we do. I mean, so we have an LA office. We have actually a couple of offices throughout the country. So we have an LA office over by the Grove, and I think it's for us having that office outside the home has created kind of a separation of church and state to a degree. I mean, with what we do and with technology the way it is, I'm always connected, always working to a degree, but at least I can do it from home. But there is I try to follow a routine. I think for us, it's about trying to find that balance between work life and spending quality time with the kids during the weekdays as well. I think when they were newborns, it was much easier.
Easier?
I think it's a lot easier. I mean, you may be sleeping less at night because they're getting up throughout the night, but now as they get older, you sleep less because you worry. It's not because you're getting up and having to feed or change. So it changes a little bit. But I think, as they get older too, you have more responsibility in terms of their activities. So, every day we have some sort of after school activity. It's piano, it's, French tutor, it's soccer, it's, fencing, it's everything. So there's always something pretty much every weekday. And then it, rolls into the weekends as well.
So with all of those things that are going on, you talk about how you can work 24 hours a day, but it means, right, necessarily that you don't get large uninterrupted blocks of time to work, right? Because there are like
not after
slivers.
hours. Yeah, anything after 6, it's a balance of really trying to put the phone down, put the computer away, and focus on cooking dinner, working with the kids on homework or doing the after school activities.
So do you manage to do that? Or
I think with having a partner makes all the difference in the world. I think I think it was about a week of not having my husband in town. He was out for a family funeral, and I had to manage a busy work schedule and 2 kids. My hat's off to single parents, because at the end of it, even my 10-year-old's like, "I'm sorry if I'm giving you any hard times," and she was very sweet about it. Yeah, so she understand. Even she saw how difficult it was. So I think having a partner that you can divide and conquer. He has the flexibility a little bit more during the workday to leave and do parent-teacher conferences if he needs to, or pick him up for practice or any of that sort of thing.
And so you said earlier that you manage the routine. So what's the routine? How's your day look like?
My day usually consists of me getting up around 5:30, 6. I check emails, respond to a couple of things. We have East Coast clients as well, so I try to get some stuff off early. And then I do CrossFit in the morning. I usually do that about 5 days a week. That's my de-stressor. And then I come back. While I'm doing that, my husband gets the kids ready for school. Usually we'll take them to school, and then we get in and go into the office, work until about 6. He picks them up around 2:33, and then he runs them around to the after school stuff. So we try to kind of take turns, but he kind of does more of the logistics with the kids at the moment.
How much help did you have during the time?
When the kids were newborns, when they were really young, we had his parents pretty much at our beck and call. We didn't have a nanny. We were both still working full time, but we were able to, in the mornings, she would come in and even stay with us for a single night and let us sleep, which was amazing. I think for us, having them for the first 2 or 3 years, the first part of our kids' lives made a big difference. And plus she was able to spend time with them.
Did you ever do split the time between you two?
I think we kind of organically figured out what made sense for each of us. I think even with our firstborn, when she was a newborn baby, we tried to do some sort of system where I would take one night, or I'd take half a night, he would take the other half. Mm-hmm. And I think we kind of just found our natural rhythm where, I would take the early part of the night, like midnight to 3, and then he would take 3 to 6 or 3 to 7, so that I could actually get sleep and he could get some sleep.
How can you manage to do everything together?
When you have kids, you kind of give up your personal priorities to a degree, but then I think you have to find a balance. So I think it's about, everything you do is about balance. So I think for, even working out, don't stress the first couple of weeks that you have a newborn baby. If you're making it to the gym or not, you'll get back. It all works out. And I think everything about successful parenting and having a strong relationship with kids. I mean, kids are taxing. They're difficult sometimes. It's exhausting. It's also extremely rewarding. And I think that it's about finding a balance. It's about getting someone to come in, watch your kids, so you can go out and have drinks with friends and actually have adult time and balance out, baby time. I think it's all about prioritizing it and having that support system. Again, I think for me, it was having my mother and father-in-law there that, I could have them come in for a week. And even if it meant they were staying in my house, it may have been tight, but I actually had time to go out and do stuff and enjoy, adult time outside of the kid time, even if it was, working out, so I could go out and have them come watch a kid for an hour so I could hit the gym. I think it's just finding balance and having the support system. Friends and family is hugely important.
And now, do you still rely on them, or do you?
I do. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I mean, we travel.
Live?
We travel a lot for work.
Okay.
So I was just in Virginia. We have a DC office, so I was back there for about a week. And the kids are still in school. They still have all their after school stuff. A nanny, I don't think could handle that, and it would have to be a full-time thing. So I'm really fortunate that I have my in-laws where they'll come and they'll stay, they'll watch our dog, they'll watch our kids, they'll run the kids around. And fortunately they're retired, so for them it's quality time with the kids. They, gives them kind of purpose, gives them something to do.
This is something we've certainly asked ourselves a lot. We had our kids on the other side of the world from where both of our sets of parents or our parents live. And so while they've come and visited for blocks of time and have been incredibly helpful when they've been here, it's a different kind of model because you're paying cash when you want, support. And I also think that in that first week or 2 weeks, I don't know how you guys felt, but we were in such shock that the idea that we didn't have family around us really close, I think it was a mistake. I'm going to say right now that, I almost said were I to do it again, and then it stuck in my throat because I can't really say those words.
But we had twins. It's different.
It is different. I have a lot of friends that have twins, and it's very different because you have double of the same experience. So it's not like their age is a little different. You've kind of experienced one. You're able to kind of then move on to the second and figure it out.
I grant you, but I still think that, at least speaking for myself, the emotional impact of having the kids was the change to my life that I don't think would have been that much different if it had only been one. These are changes that affect the structure of everything that you've known for a very, very long time. And if I had family, especially family maybe with little kids, then there would have been more of an understanding of what I was kind of about to enter.
Yeah.
Do you have cousins or nephews?
Yeah, actually, so I have 3 sisters, 2 older, 1 younger, and my 2 older sisters had children before I did. So I was always around a pretty large family, so I was used to little kids and babies being around. I think I was less worried about what to do with the children when we had our first baby, and more, are they going to be breathing at night? Like the very basic, fundamentals of like keeping a kid alive. It was less worried like, oh my God, it was more big picture, I think. So I think for us, I grew up with family and sisters. I was used to it. I think for, kind of going back to your point and your question about the family and having that family support, I think nowadays family is so many different things. It's, your immediate family, it's your friends. We had a lot of friends. So we were the first, we started the adoption process with our first child when I was 30. We thought it would take a couple of years before we had the first kid. To our surprise, we signed up with an adoption attorney, and within 2 weeks we were chosen.
And then how long till you had the kid in your hands?
She was 5 months old, 5 months pregnant. So we had 4 months to prepare.
So he was in the birth. You were in the birth of
we were
both
for
kids.
Charlie, for our daughter, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was quite an eye-opener. And I think for us, we didn't have time to worry and stress about how we're going to put it together systematically. It just kind of happened. It happened so quickly.
Did you ever feel that your parenting is compromised because you're working?
I do now a little bit that the kids are older. I think less when the kids were newborns and really young. I think now, my 10-year-old in particular, she's very acutely aware of how much time I spend on my phone or my computer. I think for the longest time, she liked to say that I didn't work. I just stared at my computer all day. And I'm like, honey, that is work. And, I work for my computer. So I think, for her, she's always asking, why am I on it? Why am I always working? And I feel like when I give her a response, it's sometimes something my parents would say.
Like what is it?
You like nice things, don't you?
Oh, like that. I put a roof over your head.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
So I mean, I do feel a little bad, but I think again, it's finding balance and making sure that I take time off, I disconnect from electronics and do dinner. I cook dinner pretty much every night. I do sit down, try to do homework with them. Although now with the 10-year-old, the math homework is getting a little tricky.
Getting too hard? Yeah. But your husband can help with that because of his background? Because of the business background? No,
I think kids learn differently now, especially with math. So when your kids get older, you'll see like they do a completely different system for multiplications and division and fractions. And I remember how I learned couple of years ago.
Of course.
But with my daughter, they learn a certain way. So when you're trying to go through and explain to them, it's very different.
Wow.
Yeah, math is in particular. I mean, history, all that stuff is really basic, but the math is just very different system.
Mm-hmm.
Well, although they don't do cursive anymore. You must have learned cursive, right?
I learned cursive.
Yeah.
Our daughter went to a French school, and they learned cursive. So she did, but her brother, we pulled him out before. I think he was there for about 2 years,
Right.
and he didn't learn cursive. So she knows that he doesn't.
What happens when quills come back? What will they do?
They'll have some electronic version, I'm sure.
Did you ever feel that your work is compromised because you're a dad?
Not really. I feel like sometimes the work is, I can always do it, and I can always figure out when to do it after hours. I think so much of what I do is based on emails and communications through digital platforms or phones, and I'm able to really kind of find different times to work on it. So if it means that I stay up all night working on stuff after the kids are sleeping, like I feel like the work is never really compromised. Children, I mean, again, it's balance. It's tough.
Yeah. So did you feel, I don't know how it applies to your type of work, but just the very fact that you have clients, did you feel any change from your clients, both existing clients and new ones in terms of approaching them? Did you feel any kind of difference in their reaction to you when they knew that you had kids?
I think it's kind of it's misery loves company. I think maybe sometimes. I think a lot of parents are, I mean, especially with my my straight clients that aren't based in Los Angeles, that aren't used to same-sex families. I think that it's a common bond. So it gives us something to talk about, and I think it actually is a great icebreaker even for new business and new clients, because you can kind of talk about the same things that you're going through, even if we're in LA and they're in some small rural town somewhere in the Midwest. We have the same kind of issues. Is the school great? Are the kids learning? Are they behaving? It's all the basic fundamentals of parenting. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it actually creates a common bond. I think that has been a great networking tool to a degree,
right.
I guess.
Right. I actually completely agree with you. I have noticed it in my work that it's not to say, I work for a place that is incredibly supportive and embracing of gays and difference and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, when you show up and now you have kids, whereas they were supportive of you before as someone who's weird and different, now they're supportive of you as, oh yeah, you're welcome to the club. Let's talk about what school you're going to send your kids to, and let me help you find a good nanny and
Absolutely.
all of this kind of stuff. And it's powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to exploit my children, but I love to exploit my children.
Yeah, totally. I think that it's funny because I think that I think with my family who's from Virginia, I grew up in a very conservative background. Yeah. I think the kids were a bit of an icebreaker to that degree as well. I think they realized there's a sense of normalcy in my life and that I would have kids. And I think that was my mom's biggest issue, was like, oh, you're gay, you're not going to have kids. Right. I'm not going to have grandkids from you. And, she does. She's got 2 kids. So.
Now she doesn't live here.
No, Virginia.
And how often does she come and stay here?
A couple times a year. So, and she'll come stay with us.
And you put her to work when she gets here too,
I do,
right?
And she's great, very sweet, sensitive, but she also will call my daughter out on any BS that she tries to pull on her. She's like, I'm visiting, but you're not getting everything you want.
Well, just because I want to be clear that my mother felt the same way that your mother did.
Yeah.
That I wasn't going to have children, she wasn't going to have grandchildren. And my view is, okay, now I've done that now, which means you better work.
Yeah, you
now.
got a job.
Yeah, you got a job now because you made me do this.
Yeah, I think there's something pretty amazing though watching the grandparents interact with the kids. They kind of get some of the best parts because they get to have fun with the kids, but they don't have to deal with the disciplinary side for the most part.
Yeah.
I was actually talking to my mom about it recently, and my daughter, we sent her to Virginia throughout the summer to live with my parents for about 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks. And my parents live, on 6 acres. They have chickens. They have all sorts of, outdoor ATV stuff for my daughter.
We'll send our kids.
Oh, yeah, can we
yeah,
say
your boys would love it.
Let's do it.
Your boys would love it. And so
give us your parents' address.
Yeah, we sent her out there and just to spend some time with my mom. And my mom said that she was great she had one issue with her, but my mom like snapped her in line. And
What age was that?
It was this past summer. She was 10. Yeah.
10.
So did she fly by herself?
No, I flew her back out there.
Would you do that? Is it? I don't know. When do little kids start doing?
I think
that?
it depends on the kid. So, my daughter's 10. I asked her if she would even want to do it, and she was like, "No."
Oh, she said,
Yeah, she didn't want to do it. But
Did you offer a business class?
No. No way.
Well, that might change things.
So my neighbors, though, this great couple, they have twin boys, and they're 10, and they lived in New York, and they have family in New York. They send the boys to fly by themselves, and the boys are totally fine. I think it just depends on the maturity level of the kids.
Right.
We received a couple of questions from listeners, and one question I thought I would pose to you because I think like it's kind of relevant, from a listener named Nick. He said, he asked, like, what advice do you have? He's a prospective dad. They're looking into adoption. And what advice do you have for dads who freelance in terms of balancing childhood work? And they're debating between having him put his work on hold or like having sending the kid to daycare or having a babysitter. They don't know what to do. So what do you advise?
I typically don't give out parenting advice because I think that every kid in every situation is different. But I do think that in terms of, your child and when you have your kids, I think, we have a lot of friends that are fortunate enough where not both parents have to work. They have enough income from a single parent that they can take a year off and do that. And that's great for them. I think it's great for the kids. For us, we didn't have the luxury. We were both busy and we had our own company. So I think for us, it's about finding, again, that support. I think that, I took about 2 weeks off with our first child and, took vacation time. I was at an agency still before I started my own company. With the second child, I had my own company and I kept going. I couldn't stop. I couldn't take a break. I couldn't make it, but you figure out how to make it work.
So you take less clients? How does it work?
I think I intentionally eased off the gas on new business. I didn't want to overwhelm myself between the new baby and new clients. And for me, the timing just worked out really well. We weren't crazy busy. I was busy enough, but I wasn't crazy busy where I was working 40, 50 hours a week or plus. I was working 20 hours. And so I had the flexibility to do it and do it on my own time for the most part.
This raises a question for me. Your answer involved whether the family can afford to do it financially or time-wise. Agreed, but I think there's another side to that, and it is, how do you measure whether you as an individual should stay at home with the kids if, even assuming you can, I have to admit, like, I didn't want to do that, and I don't know how unless you do it and find out. Is there a way of measuring as an individual whether this is going to work for you?
I don't think you'll know until you do it. And I think for me, I very much like you, I think after my 2 weeks after my first child, I was ready to go back to work. I needed adult conversations. I needed something that didn't 100% focus on diapers and feeding. But
then why did you go into PR? I'm sorry. Please go on.
I just have more babies.
Right. I couldn't resist.
At least these babies pay me.
You remember my conversation.
I do. I really remember. Yes.
So you said you don't give advice about parenting, but what if somebody asks you for advice?
Well, my younger sister, when she was pregnant and my brother-in-law came over for dinner one night, I said, there's only one piece of advice I'm going to give you as a parent. I'm like, at the time I had 2 kids, and I said, the only advice I'm ever going to give you is this one thing. I'm like, parenting is all about who can out-manipulate who. Wow. And now having a 10-year-old daughter, it's 100% true. And I totally say agree. Manipulate. I think manipulate can be a bad word. I think in this sense it's not. I mean, for kids, it's crying, it's whining. They want something. Yeah. As they get older, they lie or they try to manipulate you to get something they want. Mm-hmm. So I think it's setting out rules that first of all, if you're 2 parents and you're having kids and raising kids, get on the same page and never let the kids see you separated,
right?
Especially as the kids get older. But I think it really is just about managing the kids and being consistent.
We're going through this phase where they want stuff all the time. I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this.
Yeah.
And I feel pretty awful that they're going to grow up being spoiled. Did you ever had gone through this phase, and what did you do?
I'm still in that phase.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah, and that's just
Oh
my
my
husband.
God.
I would point out that I think all human beings probably stay that way. They just learn to hide the words. They don't say, I want it, I want it. They just want it, and they don't express it as directly. I'm serious. I think people want things. They just learn to be a little bit more classy about the way they do it.
Or they figure out how to get to themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think
Exactly.
that I agree. I think that my 7-year-old, what he wants and how he goes about asking for something is very different than my 10-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my 10-year-old right now is obsessed with Harry Potter, so she's reading all of the books and she's
We
watched
at
the
the Warner
movies.
Brothers company, thank you for
You'll
that.
try
Yes.
to send him a gift or something.
Well, so
And Harry
her
Potter
her
gift.
new obsession and her ask and her want has been to go to Harry Potter the park, and so she wants to
in
dress
London?
up as no here.
Oh,
Universal.
Yeah, Universal. So she, that's her, and it literally is multiple times a day, every day. And so at this point, it becomes, okay, what are you going to do to earn it? And
Right.
so that's the conversation.
Right.
Let's see what your grades look like. Let's see how nice you're being to your brother this week. And we start chipping away at certain things that she has to do in order to get that.
I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, the bad thing is, she'll get it regardless.
Damn it.
Yeah.
Damn it. They always do that.
They do.
Is either one of your children old enough to understand what you do for a living?
I think my daughter is finally getting it. Ironically, my 68-year-old father doesn't understand it.
Oh, yeah, no, that's normal.
So I just gave up, and I'm like, yeah, I do advertising.
Well, so does she ask you? Do you proactively sit her down and tell her? How does that work? Because I want to start doing that eventually, but my kids are 3.
Well, so I think they had a career day at her school a couple of years ago. I think it was probably about 2 or 3 years ago.
Right.
And they asked a couple of parents if they want to come in. And my daughter told me that she didn't want me to come in because all I do is sit and stare at a computer. And I was like, okay, she doesn't get it. But as she's gotten older, she'll come into the office sometimes and she'll ask questions and she'll ask what I'm doing. And I'll show her kind of what we do to a degree. So she understands, I think, the basic fundamentals of public relations. And she gets social media. She's not on it yet, but she understands what it is. So,
Right.
I think for that, she kind of gets excited that, something that she sees is something we work on.
We have only a few more minutes to the interview, but I want to go back to the first thing you said about you and your husband not fighting.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to
I
harp
want-
on that a little bit.
Yeah, I want to kind of investigate on it because I want to get inspired. How is it possible? Like, what happens if he annoys you or it does something that...
Yeah, it's so weird because I think before he and I met and before we started dating, there were plenty of people that I met that got on my nerves really quickly. And 16 years, I mean, honestly, I don't think we haven't had a blow up fight. We haven't had a blow up argument. We've had disagreements, but it's usually really minor. I think especially, after you have kids, the disagreements, you may be on different pages, but I think for us, it's just, I think first and foremost, I think with our relationship, we're friends. And I think everything else is secondary. I think that, we always are, his strengths and his weaknesses complement mine in the sense that, he challenges me and I do the same for him. And I think that for us in terms of fighting, I don't know how we don't, because we do spend so much time
Yeah,
together.
seriously.
But it's just one of those things that we just get along.
What are your personalities?
He is Cuban, so he's got very strong, Cuban Scorpio. So he's very strong, strong personality.
Emotional?
Not overly. I
Okay.
mean, yeah, pretty pretty normal. Me, I'm pretty easygoing. I've always been kind of go with the flow.
Right.
I think as I've gotten older, I've gotten maybe a little bit more difficult, but I don't know. I think it's just about, for me, he's more like support than anything. I think, he helps me with the kids, and I mean, it's a partnership.
Did you had more disagreements before or after the kids?
I think they were just different disagreements. I think that, before, like, they were probably very superficial. They were about us or me or, spending money or something really simple. Now it's about, punishment for the kids,
right.
or, trying to encourage the kids. And, it's just changed. I think when you have kids, your perspective changes, your needs and your wants get put on the back burner to a degree.
I think it's really interesting, right? Because there are, I know that there are couples who are devastated by the relationship is devastated by having children.
Yeah.
There's that old notion that your relationship isn't going well, so you have a kid. Yeah. Doesn't seem like a smart thing.
Yeah.
Yet, on the other hand, I'll just say from my experience, our experience anyway, it's true that since we had kids, a lot of the more kind of petty shit, not so much anymore, because there's a lot more serious stuff to focus on.
Absolutely. I think your focus is just more about, am I raising my kids right? Are we doing what's in our kids' best interest?
Right.
And then I think the other small stuff is just it's not important.
Right.
Other than going to Virginia, do you ever take your kids to long drives or to visit places?
Well, we took our kids this summer to Europe. We did a whole European trip. And we waited. We did a cruise when our daughter was 18 months old. And that was a huge mistake.
Oh, my God.
That was a huge... First of all, she didn't even appreciate it
right.
at 18 months old. And second of all, the time difference threw everything off. This time was really great. We went to Greece and Rome, and we were in a bunch of different places. And I actually did a whole collage on my 7-year-old who literally was sleeping 90% of the time. He couldn't manage it, but it was still really fun.
Wow.
Yeah.
But was it the first time or?
No, we travel a decent amount for work, but then we try to make sure that we include the kids on certain things. So we'll do, every year we go to Connecticut to visit family and spend time with them, and we take the kids. We'll do short little trips like Palm Springs or Santa Barbara and try to go out and do different things with the kids. We also, this year will be the first year that we actually spend a decent amount of time in New York with the kids.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to do Broadway and some of the stuff like that.
What are you going to see?
We don't know yet. My daughter is vying
Bob
for
Esponja.
Harry Potter.
Of course she is. She's gonna. You might have to kill somebody to get the tickets, but it's worth it.
Yeah,
Is it
I don't
like
know.
6
I'm
hours?
thinking like Kinky Boots or
It's very long.
It's like a 6-hour show.
Well, it's sort of two big.
I think it's two
big
parts,
Chunks.
yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think New York will be kind of interesting. We also like to do a lot of trips without the kids. We were in Tokyo last year for November. I think we're going to go back this year. It's those kind of trips are amazing.
At what age, and I think that's going to be the last question, but at what age did you feel like the kids are really benefiting from you going to a trip?
I think my 7-year-old in 3 years will be the perfect age. She'll be 13, he'll be 7, and I think that that's the age where they'll really appreciate what they're doing and what they're learning, what they're experiencing. Mm-hmm. I think, especially for a trip like Europe, where it's pretty serious. Time difference, a lot of historical sites, and doing stuff like that. I think that like 10 is a pretty solid age.
Did you go with them to Disneyland?
Yes, and I don't
What
ever want to go
was the
back.
first time?
I don't ever want to go back. So we had a friend that did one of the VIP experiences, and she brought us with her, and we were like, okay, we'll pay for lunch and dinner, and it was insanely expensive. It was hot. I'm not a fan.
At what age?
That was, they've gone when they were younger, but we took them, I think the last time we took them was about 2 years ago.
What was the first time?
I think my daughter was about 2.
Ooh. Yeah, we have managed to not do it yet, but Disney
we'll have to.
They have a beam that they beam into the brains of the children, so that
you
even
don't
if
know how.
They just
How is it
suddenly they
possible?
start talking about Mickey Mouse, and you're like, I've had you locked in a Skinner box since you were born. How do you know that it's the beam? They have a beam.
Yeah.
So apparently, I didn't realize this, but when we were at Disneyland last time, I didn't realize that they actually have bars and they sell alcohol for adults. So I
didn't know that.
We went
Oh,
through
yes.
the whole day of the park miserable and realizing we could have had cocktails, and at least made a little
Note
less,
to self.
a
I
little
didn't
less
know that.
painful.
Miserable drunks instead of just miserable sober people.
Mike, thank you so much
Thank you
for
so
coming
much.
here and
Yeah,
talking
thanks for having me.
to us. And I wish you a lot of success in your work and as a father. And thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you, Mike. That was really interesting, and of course, he talked a lot about the balance. And what he's basically said is that friends and family are very important.
Yeah.
And I think that, if there's something I learned from that interview, is exactly that. I mean, part of the reason why we find it so hard is because our family lives in Israel.
It's true.
Both of our families.
Look, hundreds of years ago, your kids were always in the same house or across the path from where your parents lived, and cousins and aunts and uncles and all that kind of stuff. And that largely doesn't exist anymore. And I think it has represented a huge change to what it's like to have kids.
Yes. Another thing that he talked about that I found really amusing, because Alex and I have been talking about it a lot, and I think there is some sort of it's controversial a little bit. We have to come out of the closet with that.
What have we
manipulation.
done? What have we done?
He said parenting is all about who can out-manipulate who.
Oh. Well, we know who wins that one, but okay.
For now we win.
Oh, I thought you meant you against me.
No,
oh, you
it's
mean
us.
that's right. That's right. The kids.
So for now we win.
You think
but
so? I don't think so. I think the kids have been out manipulating us for at least one of the two, and I won't say which one because
They'll grow up and listen to this.
Yeah, I think that they have been out manipulating us for at least a year. They're 3 now, since at least they were 2. Oh my God, are you kidding me? Here, look, I'll give you an example. They look at you, you tell them that they have to do something. They look at you and they say no.
This is not manipulation. This is very direct.
Well, it's direct, but wait, but there's more. There are hidden things that are going along with the no. No, look, they're incredibly sophisticated. They're incredibly sophisticated, and I think all children are, because when you think about it, that's all they have to work on. They don't have anything else going on in their life except for that thing that they want right now that you're not giving them.
I want to ask our listener, we haven't asked questions for a while now, and I want to ask this because I feel a little bit bad about this. But for example, when we want to go to school, right, in the morning, and I tell them, okay, we have to go, and they don't want to go to school. They want to go to a store. Mm-hmm. I won't say the name, but...
Givenchy. No, not Givenchy.
They want to go to the store with a circle. This is how they call it. I won't say the
name. This episode brought to you by the store with the circle.
And I tell them, okay. I'm not saying yes. I'm telling them, okay. My heart's saying, okay, this is what you want. Right. I'm not saying yes, though. They understand it as if I'm saying, okay, we'll go to the store. Mm-hmm. I get them into the car, and then on the way, they realize that we go to school, and then they start screaming. But I got to get them into the car, so I manipulated them, basically. Mm-hmm. I really feel bad about this, but it's for me, it's the only way I can actually continue doing the routine of the day.
Right.
I want to ask other dads if they're doing it too, and what do they think about it? Should I just tell them the truth and let them freak out and throw a tantrum, and because now they want to do something else that's specific? Or should I just continue with my okay? I mean, I'm not lying, right?
Yeah, you're sort of lying. I mean, you're not directly lying, but if they're doing something that clearly has them understanding, and you know that it has them understanding that they're going to get what they want and then they don't, it doesn't really matter that it's not strictly a lie. They are not a court of law. Look, I mean, I think it's a good...
It's important. I think it's important not to lie to your kid, because then they learn to lie. But if I say, okay, he says, are we going to school? So during the way he asks me, are we going to school? I'm not answering that question, because it's not a question that I can answer with okay. But
so what do? You just ignore the question? I mean, look, yeah, I'll tell you what.
I'll ignore, and I say, oh, listen to the song on the radio.
So I would like to try, even though I'm not prepared for this, I would like to try to catalog a list of ways that I respond to challenging questions from the kids. Are you ready for the list? Direct answer. Are we going to school?
Yes.
Tantrum.
Hold on.
Second one, deflection. Are we going to school? Have you seen Trump's latest press conference? Just a complete non sequitur designed to avoid the question and change their,
Look, kids, balloon.
Right. Right. Well, to me, that's like
Trump.
most recent Trump press conferences. Look, balloons. Okay. Third one is indirect lie, which is what you were just talking about, which is, are we going to school? Okay. Something like that. Next
That doesn't make any sense, though.
It doesn't. Next one is the maybe answer, right? So which is sort of an answer designed to leave the door open. And then the final one that I have is one that I've actually started to do a lot more recently, which is to answer a question with a question. So if they say, are we going to school? I'll say, do you like school?
Oh,
and that way
I
I'm
do
not
that too. I
answering
ask
the question.
now you reminded me. Sometimes when you say, "Are we going to school?" I say, "What do you think?"
Right.
Where are we going?
Psychologist. So anyway, but I just do. I'm actually very proud of that list I just came up with. So I think those are the ways that I answer my kids when they ask questions that are difficult to answer in some ways. And I would love to get responses from our listeners about which are the best and worst ways of that list to answer.
You can either write to us at hello@daddysqr.com or just leave us a message on Facebook. I think that's it for
Not
today.
quite. Not so quite. So we're not going to do sage advice today, but since it's Thanksgiving weekend, I wanted to say what I'm thankful for. Can I do that? Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's going to be like that.
Alex cried in the performance.
Shut up! Yes, I cried when my children sang "Hello, Mr. Turkey. How are you?"
Not so good.
Not so good. Obviously, I mean it's going to be pretty obvious, but I am thankful for the life that I have been blessed to be able to have. When I was 20 years old and was quite sure that I was gay, but wasn't quite out of the closet yet, this was at a time when AIDS was raging, when people could not live normal lives as homosexuals. And I was sure that I wouldn't live a normal life as a homosexual. I was sure I wouldn't be able to live the life that felt to me like it was going to be full and rich and challenging but loving. And now I am married to, the man of my dreams.
Not so much.
Shut up.
You married to Channing Tatum?
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, I'm married to the man of my dreams. I have 2 children that drive me crazy, and yet I look at them sometimes and I'm floored and flabbergasted by the fact that this is my life and these are who I have. And so if this podcast is worth anything, with all of the bitching and laughing and complaining we do about what it's like to be parents, it's to say that all of it builds up to that moment when you get to look at them and say, oh my God, I have this, and that shouldn't be possible at all. So I'm thankful for that. That was my husband pretending that he was crying. If only his tear ducts worked.
Happy Thanksgiving to all, and happy Thanksgiving to the gayswithkids.com, because this podcast is a part of gayswithkids.com umbrella.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving, you guys.